Hello, everyone, and welcome to the BuzzStream Podcast. I'm your host, Vince Nero. And today, I'm thrilled to invite Ross Hudgens, the founder and CEO of Siege Media, my old boss. How's it going, Ross? Thanks so much for joining.
Good, Vince. Yeah, good to see you as always. And great to hear you champion the digital PR outreach. Good word.
Yeah, trying to get it out there, trying to get great guests like you. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of great things to say out there. So this has kind of been the main platform that I've been using for me to learn a lot as well. So it's been great. That's actually a good segue to remind people to like and subscribe, comment on the stuff. The more engagement we have, the easier it is for me to continue to bring great guests on here like Ross and continue to spread this information. So smash that like button and all the other stuff you're supposed to say. You know the drill. So Ross, the reason I wanted to have you on here, or one of the things that's kind of sparked me reaching back out to you, is you recently did a podcast and a blog post about what you call product-led digital PR. This was something you talked about with your VP marketing, Emily Campbell Snedell. Sorry, Emily, if I butchered your newly married last name. And I really want to dig into that. But before I do, I would love to get your feedback. When I was with Siege, you've always had great advice. I've always kind of followed your lead in terms of SEO, search, and like link building. You've always had a great kind of intuition for a lot of stuff, even before, the trends seem to go. And I think you always also did a great job of not getting too far down the rabbit hole with things that were coming out from Google, algorithm updates and all that kind of stuff. But it's been a pretty tumultuous year, right? Like helpful content update, the Google leak, AI overviews. A few days ago, ChatGPT launched their search GPT. There's just so much going on right now. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on the general direction that you think Google is heading right now.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch. And you're right. I normally wouldn't pay too much attention. I think we had to pay attention to AI overviews because it's like so different. And there was pessimism there for sure. But I think my takeaway is, I was a little nervous about it, but a lot of those nerves, I think, are behind us, especially with things like the monopoly breakup. I don't think that'll change the world or anything that they have that ruling against them, but hopefully it's just like another potentially positive thing. And it seems like a lot of this kind of apocalypse news is not so much as slated or everyone was concerned in terms of the downside risk, at least so far. I mean, what I've kind of said since the beginning is that it feels like in a worst case scenario, it's a 10 and 20% drop. I think it's been on the lower side of that so far. It could expand to the higher side, but still a very, very healthy channel. I mean, will it ever be as big and fruitful, especially for smaller players, that it was in the past? I don't know, but if I generally feel optimistic, especially kind of getting on the other side of what was one of a rare era of a little bit of pessimism, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you Siege did a couple great studies on kind of the impact that you saw across your clients. I think that's what you're referring to, that like 10 or 20% decrease. Outside of organic traffic, a few years ago, you kind of announced that you were maybe taking a step backward in doing outreach and kind of like content-led outreach and link building, that sort of stuff. And now it seems like maybe you're kind of going back a little bit towards it again. Why the initial switch off, I guess, and then maybe we can talk about why you've started back up.
Yeah, I mean, the switch off, we have a post on why we stopped doing most manual link building, was we just felt like we found a more efficient vehicle. It's not that outreach wasn't helpful. It was more that if you did things correctly, you invested in the website, you invested in the brand, and you still thought about link acquisition via like organic link assets, topics that attract links naturally, trends, statistics, data points, all that stuff. It just was more price efficient than doing a lot of outreach. So like, why would you do that was sort of the rationale. And we've gone a little bit back on that, not to a massive degree. And what the degree is I think previously we are like, oh, we could promote 4 assets a month with manual outreach. But now more of the thought process is Still, there's value, but it's maybe you just shouldn't be doing it as frequently as you were before. Like, is it quarterly? Is it even twice a year sometimes? Is it only once a year? And the less you do it, the higher leverage it tends to be. Like, you're not going to wear these people out. It's truly good content, digital PR. Like, you're getting a secondary value. And the value is like you have more opportunity for more links in that way as well. So that's higher leverage. And by nature, you can't reach out to the same publications 95 times. And also, you stay product tied, which is that product led idea. And if you're product led, you make a real argument that this actually has value, one, to your brand. It actually can drive sales, which I think, unfortunately, a lot of digital PR cannot say. And the second part is when you do that work, you can reproduce it across more things. So those reports can then be used across all your content. And that was kind of an aha seeing it deployed is like, why not use this data across all SEO content or as much as possible? And if it's about your product truly, that's relatively easy to do because it's just so naturally on voice to do so.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a couple things there, and I remember, being at Siege and hitting some of these challenges that I'm sure a lot of agencies hit, where it's, if you are hitting the volume that we were talking about, 4 posts a month, you do run those risks of not only like burnout from people, like it's like ideation burnout, right? It's like hard to find stuff. And then you start, like you said, getting a little further away from center, further away from the product, kind of brand centric stuff, but then also potentially souring some of the relationships with journalists and bloggers. I mean, I feel like we were maybe doing, at least when I started like 6 years ago, we were doing a lot more blogger outreach. So it was easier to sour those relationships more quickly. Just they were getting pitched all the time. But yeah, I really like this. And I think the approach is something I haven't really seen. I've seen different versions of this done. Like I feel like HubSpot does this in a way where they'll do like their massive marketing report and then you reuse those statistics that they find in statistics posts. But this doesn't exactly sound like how you're leveraging it, or at least that's maybe part of it, but you're doing it a little bit more on product pages too, right?
So yes and no. We call it product led because that's a good test case. Like, could the data live on a product page? If you couldn't have it
Mm,
live, that's kind of like I forget the right framing of that, but if it couldn't live on that page, then it's not truly tied to product. And because of that, it probably will struggle living on other SEO content. So you're right that, and this is, I think we were doing it when you were last with us. We would put it on the top of a stats post. That was the obvious place, but kind of the aha was how much further it could go. Like we, for example, have a trends report on our site and we talk about link building. We talk about interactive content, like if they're using it or not. And then we have a post on interactive content. By nature, we can cite that same data point about interactive content on it, where previously we would have just put it at the top of a stats post. And that was that's the milking it idea that just drives so much more ROI. And I think it definitely doesn't hurt to put it on the product page. Sometimes there's just difficulties doing that. And it probably could help you get some links directly from those product pages by all means. But I think the helpfulness of that framing is it's just that you just got to walk through that test case of could I actually have this on a page? And if so, then it's probably actually capable of driving conversions and extra value beyond just that link.
and is this kind of a topic in general could live on a product page, or are you using that to determine the questions and like if you do a trends report or something, like the kind of top subtopics, and just so you make sure that it's kind of laser focused on your product and brand kind of general area?
Yes. I mean, I think thematically, like in our example, we do digital PR, we do content creation, we have a lot of SaaS customers. Like hypothetically, you could have a trends report across all of these kind of segment areas. Hypothetically, of course, that would get diluted a little bit, but I think that's a great place to start generally. And the broader you are, the easier it is to build a trend report like that. But something that Emily also ideated that I thought was really smart was you would kind of start with a trends report And then you have that keyword research. And by nature, all your questions for that report could dovetail into, say, your next 10 topics. So if you have 10 questions you're going to ask, there's one on interactive content, one on digital PR, one on link building. I now have a data point for all 10 of those assets. That's pretty awesome. In addition to just making that original report pretty powerful. Now all my 10 SEO posts are differentiated, unique, first party data, defensible, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that kind of first party data, it's probably a good segue to talk about kind of the AI overview. At least from my perspective, like that's where you're going to be able to get into those AI overview results and the ChatGPT and SearchGPT results is by producing your own data. I mean, is that kind of the thought process there?
Yeah, definitely a part of it. You've probably heard the framing of information gain. It seems like that information gain is more prominent in those overviews. So that seems very probable. And we've done we've done studies of like clients who had 50-50 first party data referenced on their articles, and then half of the articles did not have any. And it was like it was 83% difference in traffic value, and I think 34% more links. But you could think how nature of someone like a researcher is just looking at articles and they're trying to find something to cite. By nature, that's going to help everything just kind of lift as well.
Yeah, I think it was the very first person I ever saw do this was Andy from Orbit Media. Yeah. They had like a blogging statistics survey that they run like every year since like 2014 or something. And like for a long time, that was ranking number one for blogging statistics because it was all full of their own statistics, right? And that was before everybody was writing stats posts. But yeah, I mean, it seems so obvious, right? To just like produce your own stuff and get this first party content. I think probably the challenges for a lot of people are how to run these reports, the cost of these reports and the cost benefit analysis, especially when you get into like a longer term link gain or like something that's not as directly a one-to-one, like I'm going to get 30 links from this, being able to tell a client that like it's a tougher conversation to have. So, or at least, I don't know, you tell me, is it a tougher conversation to have with clients in something like this?
I mean, I think it's been relatively easy actually. When you think of it, the good news is, and this is sometimes the framing is that first report can fall on its face, even though it so rarely does, just because it's like that big report. It's not a high frequency thing. You now have what we're putting in our project trackers, as you remember, Vince, is like a data bank, and we're going to reference that data for an entire year, sometimes a little longer than that, across all content. So even if you're spending for an expensive targeted audience, 10,000 for a report, if you're using that over a year for a very serious content marketing investment, like that's to me very high ROI. It's very possible that first push is not like wildly high, but I mean it's hard to argue for the ROI of that effort in my opinion.
Yeah. But would you say the time frame is, I mean, it's obviously not like a month you're going to get that. You're looking more like a year, 2 year, right? I think is your kind of like lifetime link.
Yeah. You would, but I mean, the outreach piece is, I think because it's so powerful and can get in a lot of links and can actually drive secondary value. And that's one of the aha differences of when we pull back. It's like when you're saying, you do that lifetime link value. We have a post on link building cost, which talks about how we kind of analyze industries. That math wasn't always super great. And I think it's getting worse a lot of like the value of links. But if you're truly tied to products and you can get a lot of coverage and brand awareness and it's going to live on your site for a year in prominent ways, there is truly arguable secondary value. You might even argue primary value if it's done well. And I think it's kind of the difference is it's like now there's true primary value beyond just the links. And of course the links are good, but we're trying to get like the other stuff just weights it more than the high frequency stuff we were doing did.
Yeah. Do you find yourself talking more about So I have a question because you've always been very cognizant of brand, I think, but do you maybe find yourself talking more about it these days about how link building and SEO and the kind of work that Siege does influences and can help build the brand and how and why brand is so important these days?
Yeah, I don't know that I would say indirectly. I don't know that you asked that question. I don't know if I find myself saying the word brand or Drew, our head of sales, saying the word brand specifically. I mean, it's an indirect. This digital PR thing, I think, definitely contributes to that. I would say we're not kind of the antithesis of your question. We're not saying, oh, we're not emphasizing links in our conversations. It's in there. It's in our goals. It's something we talk about, but it's like not. It's become less and less of a primary voice of the volume of links and the DR of our links and stuff like that. It's just cadencing down. That might not be the right phrasing, but that's a little
Yeah.
wider than it was.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason I asked that is like from my perspective, even seeing the way that I get pitched things, I feel like there's like two main camps of like link builder thought. It's like the long term, like hyper relevant, where we're gonna build a brand as we build links, and then there's like go buy links from this site or like link exchange networks or guest posting, which, is essentially kind of the link exchange network. They're kind of one and the same. Yeah, I feel like there's like a big gap these days and like trying to convince the people that are doing those kind of older school tactics, maybe not like quick win, maybe not as like quantitative focused on like, I'm going to get you these 50 links of a whatever DR. And like, those are the only metrics that they care about is like the quantity of links and not necessarily the quality. Just feel like it's a tough conversation to have with people who are so entrenched in those like older school methods, if that makes sense. I mean, have you found that is the case?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. I feel like we're iteratively over time hearing less of those conversations. I don't know if those people, those companies are slowly getting washed out. That would be my assumption. Like you hear about the affiliate, scrappy people of the world, like there's less and less, or like those are not doing as well recently, which naturally I think ties to that mindset more often. Um, so it's kind of just you feel it slowly over time. But if I looked at our form submits, for example, I feel like we just anecdotally see, even though our position on our site hasn't changed dramatically, seeing less people kind of lead with like link building focused messages.
Right. Like I need to build 100 links in a
Yeah,
month or something.
yeah. Because I think that
Yeah.
old school, yeah, to your point, I mean, I think it just doesn't, it's not doing as well. So
Yeah.
whether or not they
Yeah.
think it or not, it's probably slowly getting those people eventually end up not doing that.
Yeah. So let's get back to the product led thing because I want to kind of drill down to some more kind of like tactical pieces of this. One of the things that I talk to a lot of people about is, people ask like, are these data studies, like these reports, like, do you have to be a certain size? Like if someone like, oh, I have a startup, like, should I even be doing this? Like, is this even going to be effective for me? What's your take on that let's start there, like the size or kind of like newness of your website or company?
I mean, the more distribution you have, the better it's going to do for sure. I mean, in some ways, you could argue, and I think it's true, like we could build a report like this, and the bigger the company, the less actual outreach they might need to even get the word out. Like it just could live in the architecture of their site and do well. It's high leverage enough that I think outreach is positive ROI for sure. But if you're smaller, I mean, I think it can still be warranted. Rough, and you brought up, and we're actually doing more posts on this coming up on my LinkedIn. It will be in my history, but I'm not sure when it's publishing. But like roughly, there's a survey. We use SurveyMonkey primarily. They have an audience calculator to get statistical significance. You could be somewhere between like 2,000 and 5,000 for a pretty good survey that you can ask 10 questions and then build like a whole report. You could create multiple one-offs just with that one survey, really, if you get them out quickly and it's still relevant. On very niche audiences, could be as high as like 10,000. That's rare. but that's possible. And it's all what your budget is, I guess, as a smaller company. But if you're a leaner startup and you're taking this thing seriously, I mean, I think it's warranted. But I would say if you're smaller, you're also going to be taken a little less seriously by big publications. But if you're Salesforce writing a sales trends piece with data, like everyone's going to cover that, of course. So that's probably the one reason you might not lean that way if you're day one.
Yeah, it's funny. I ask a lot of UK-based teams about the kind of, and I've asked journalists this too. It's like, do you care where the data comes from? Like, is it a small company, a large company, a well-known one? And for the most part, they say no. Like, as long as the story is relevant and they can look at the data and make sure it's statistically significant, like that piece seems to be the most important. And even survey platforms, the people I've asked, surprisingly, I mean, I even think this is different from some of the kind of research we did when I was with you guys. Like, people don't really seem to care. Again, like, as long as the data is there and is good. So that was an interesting thing to me, and which makes me think that, like, yeah, maybe it doesn't matter what size you are, but to your point, it sounds like to get the most out of spreading the rest of the data right throughout your site. Like, if you don't have the big site, you just have this one big report and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, and just to put color on that, I wouldn't say there's benefits being huge for sure, but there's still a lot being smaller. It's just probably a degree. Like, I don't think it's a no if you're smaller. It's just natural big brand kind of stuff that you generally see.
Now, what about like industry specific? Like, does this work for B2B brands? Is this something that's only specific B2C? What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's been something we've been thinking about internally around frequency of these things. Like, certain industry, if you're hyper niche, you probably can't even you can't do a report every quarter. You're too small for that. You probably could do once a year. Like, that feels like the minimum for most, as long as it feels on brand. So an example, without saying the client, in a B2C shoe space, their voice is in data. Like, it doesn't feel right to communicate, like, be speaking in data a lot. So that's like a rare exception that we probably wouldn't want to do a ton of lift around it. I think that we're still working places there, but as long as data feels like it matches your voice, I think it works in most industries. It's just a matter of frequency. It's like when it starts breaking down around that product led concept, then I think you have a problem. So we're kind of going on a spectrum where it could be as much as like every month. I think you still could do it every month for certain consumer generally brands. To give you a broad example, I think very big travel sites could probably do it every single month for sure.
I was gonna say, yeah, like you see Bankrate like does their like user spending study or something, or state savings monthly report about how much people are saving.
I would say most B2B could be, I think it makes sense for most B2B. Most B2B can speak data naturally. There it could be as much as every other month, but more frequently, I think we're saying quarterly. And although sometimes it could be every 6 months, it's kind of goes back to what can we talk about? Do we have enough product areas as well? Like at Siege, just to say it again, like we have content creation, we have digital PR, we support SaaS. You hypothetically could do some different reports on like all of these areas and not have it be redundant. But if you're just broadly your niche startup and you're known for a very niche thing, you might just want to do one report each time. So it's really a frequency question. Yeah. But generally, yes.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't exactly what you guys are doing, but maybe there's some similarities there. Like one of our podcasts, we talked with Brian Dean on like a lot of the trends reports and a lot of the kind of data studies that he used to do for Backlinko when he was still there. It seems like it's kind of a similar approach where it's like, as long as you're like putting in the right amount of effort, you're going to get something out of it. I mean, I guess talk to me about where this can fail, because you mentioned this a couple of times, like, oh, this might fall flat, the first, but then it sounds like you kind of have, because you're getting all this data, you can kind of safeguard it somewhat because you can reuse the data in other pieces. But where does this fail?
If you go off brand, you end up doing it too much. You don't distribute it. Like I think there is naturally, and it's something we're thinking about more, is like outreach, of course, is one way to promote things, but you could make it prominent in your architecture. Like, we had it in our top nav for a long time, our trends report, and we'll have it there again next year. Yeah, and we have it still at the top of our featured area on our blog, and that is going to give it the visibility it needs. I mean, if your data is not credible enough, you didn't actually get from your buyer persona, it's hard. It doesn't look good. The sample size isn't large enough. But I don't think you can fail if you execute the content well, doing like one of these a year. It gets more delicate as you up the frequency more. But if you're getting unique data and repurposing it, it can fail, of course, but I think it's a little harder.
It can never fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If everyone starts doing this, of course, you got to be differentiated.
Right.
Maybe that's a potential failure rate if everyone in the world listens to this and starts doing it. But today, that's not the case, thankfully.
Yeah. I mean, so it sounds like in a lot of cases, you might not even need to worry about having a blog, right? Like, and it could conceivably not even, I mean, you'd have to have a website, right? Like getting links back to it. But like, if you're brand new and you don't even have any of that, like you could still potentially do it as like just getting your name out there, brand awareness.
Yeah. Although I mean, the leverage of having hosted on your site, we probably wouldn't recommend that generally. It would probably say like spin up the blog. I've seen it done though. I mean, it's often on the other side of the spectrum actually, where you just can't host anything on the site because the company's so gigantic, you can't get through any red tape. I've seen that. But smaller size. If you're spending that much on a report, I'd spend the same amount on getting some content section live. It should be relatively close first, and you'll be able to do a lot of other stuff with that.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I agree. Like, I'm fully on board for like having the content-led outreach versus pitching like a PDF or something. Yeah, let's actually talk a little bit about the pitch process too, because you talked a lot about making sure you're not oversaturating, the industry, and like that it could be a potential area where it could fail. Are you thinking about these kind of markets first to validate like, hey, we are a shoe company and we're going to do this. Like, are there enough people that I can actually pitch this to, that I can get links? What does that process look like?
Yeah, that question is an interesting dovetail from where we used to be, where we think so much about outreach markets. Like, is there food bloggers? Is this a BLB space? And that still matters, don't get me wrong. But I think increasingly it's just not as important within this process, because as long as you're maximizing the audience, it could be only 20 people. That's very feasible. But as long as it's hyper relevant to you and you're getting all this secondary value, and that kind of goes back to, we're not purely doing this for links. We're going to get some links from it, hopefully, but we're going to have it live in a prominent way that's going to build thought leadership for this brand and be used across the site. Whether or not the outreach market is big or not really a huge deal. But I guess it does go back a little. There is some consideration around the frequency idea. Like, by nature, there's an element to that of if it's consumer travel vertical, as we talked about, we do know they kind of tie together. Like, there's enough things to talk about. That's because there's generally enough interest, which generally means there's more outreach. But something we have completely pivoted from your days, Vince, at Siege, is like, we did more mid-tier blogging outreach. Now we do it as a secondary thing, but it's all data driven now. We're not doing any kind of guide infographics or anything like that, because we've seen less success.
Yeah, I mean, but in the infographic guide pitching,
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Sadly, I don't think my video about infographics pitching will hold up anymore. Um, yeah. So interesting you bring some of that up too, because like the high DA top tier, whatever you want to call it, like in my experience now, like I'm talking with all these different digital PR agencies and SEOs, is a lot of times the story is really like the most important thing, as long as it's like a strong hook. And like some don't even really, like, they validate way more towards whether or not the story has legs versus, or like the data, like
Mhm.
if it's interesting enough versus, yeah, if there is a outreach market, I just, that is a freeing way to think about it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Unless
Yeah.
pure SEO, it's just like if we're truly thinking audience for this brand, it shouldn't matter too much if we're doing this well, which is not it's nice to have this conversation. Think, we're not doing really not 1995, but 2005 SEO outreach anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. The other thing I was going to ask is about the content types that you're doing. Large data report. You're pitching this. What happens if you run across? I mean, I'm sure you do this validation at the beginning, but like uh, other people have done this, right? Like for us, for instance, I wanted to do like a state of link building report, and I go to look, and there's been like three other state of link building reports in the past like couple months, right? Muckrack and Cision both have a state of journalism report that they put out like, a month apart from one another. That to me is a limiting factor, but how do you view that? Is it just a matter of changing the angle, asking different questions, analyzing what's been done out there, or does it not even matter?
Yeah. I saw you share that decision report, by the way, which is a great report, and I shared it with
Yeah.
our team. I think you hit on a good point that it needs to come from a point of credibility. So to me, you guys would be great for link building. Cision's PR, so maybe that's you don't want to be link building, maybe. So that could be problematic potentially, but it's where your point of authority and positioning comes from probably matters most. It is worth noting as kind of a caveat to this. We did a trends report in the SaaS space. It didn't I think we'd actually had it ranks page one, I think. It's probably gotten a good number of links, but it didn't resonate the same way our content marketing trends report did. And you could understand why. We do a lot of SaaS work, but we're not SaaS authorities necessarily. So that's probably a comment on that. Well, our content marketing trends report has done really, really well. It is worth noting another like thing that I love about this is that it builds on itself. Our year two, it's almost like a hockey stick for whatever reason, is that we can now compare year one data to year two.
Yeah.
And that is, I don't know, if that's purely the reason, maybe AI, I'm not sure, but it's hockey sticked in like just how much pickup we're getting in year two.
Yeah. And I've seen that after analyzing some posts, like anytime people update their posts on a yearly basis, you just see it. Yeah. Because you have so many more data points, right? Like there's so many more stories you can lean on. And yeah, I think getting that first one out of the way seems to be probably the toughest, right? So,
Agreed. Yeah. Like having
yeah.
what's the fortitude to be like, we're going to do this forever. This is a long-term strategy we're planning towards. And maybe like we've just barely touched page one for not that ranking for content marketing trends is that interesting, but we've popped on there a few times this year. It's like hyper competitive, but we're like playing long game on this stuff. And it seems to be working.
Yeah, cool. It'll be interesting to see kind of how that grows. Because yeah, I saw it very successful so far. Okay, so barring let's set that aside, the product led digital PR thing. What else has been successful these days for you guys at Siege in terms of tactical link building? Let's say.
We have identified, and maybe this is good at the end of this. Don't share this widely as a social clip, please. But we've realized that Ahrefs keyword difficulty It's actually not that great of a keyword difficulty metric. But what it is good for is showing organic link intent. So what we've actually used that because, and the reason for that is all it measures currently at the time of this recording, this is why I don't want them to change it, is it measures the number of links to page one assets, but it doesn't look at optimization or domain rating at all. So key search has actually been better for that for us. So we're using key search because it uses a blended equation. And then we're using Ahrefs keyword difficulty as a keyword difficulty score. So if you combine those two and you're actually considering overall difficulty with a strong signal of link intent, you lean into those link intent topics, that's quite powerful for that kind of snowball of link acquisition. So that's something we've been doing more since you were with us. And we learned from pain there over time, because for a while we were just seeing who linked to the first result and low difficulty. And then at some point I realized, oh, low difficulty on Ahrefs is actually the worst place to be looking for a link intent. So we migrated to this process, and of course it's much more successful.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The tool is called Key
Search.
It's Key Search.
It's literally only keyword difficulty, and it's super cheap. I think it's like $19 a month. Yeah, they pull in Moz metrics to do their calculation, but I think it doesn't have an API, which is kind of one of the weaknesses, but it's really easy to just copy and paste the data, and it's user friendly. Yeah. So yeah, it's to date the best keyword difficulty tool we've seen.
And then so outside of that, I know, you guys are still doing a lot of great design work. How does that kind of play into, and we touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to hear you elaborate a little bit more on like how the design work, because you also recently posted about this on LinkedIn, and how the design work kind of plays a role in SEO.
Yeah, and pitching for sure. I mean, having high quality visual assets, reporters, bloggers can share. It makes life much easier. From day one, Siege, we were primarily graphic design, and we've kind of done more web design because that content experience is so critical. So we've over time just kind of ramped up that conversation. We've been more aggressive telling clients they need to implement these web design changes within 90 days or we're not going to hit our goals. And that has been more effective when there's been roadblocks. And yeah, we just keep kind of pushing that forward, learning more. Like on blogs, we used to not care about giant hero images. Now we're like, we need a small hero image for load time. Thinking more about related linking. We've been testing more recently, more related links post content. And I think we're seeing a pretty big lift in being 6+ post content. So that's interesting, but we'll have more to share there. But yeah, all of those things.
Related links within the content, like linking to
post content,
like below the post.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Just kind of a scalable thing. I think I was just kind of pattern matching some successful sites, and it seemed like pretty consistently they were using more than 3, whether it was there or you do it in other areas. But by nature, you scale out this stuff. It's just very easy to scale, as long as it's like tied to the concept, of course. Like it can't, I mean, it might still do okay. It was kind of random, but like if we have digital PR posts, we should have 6+ digital PR posts.
Yeah.
And it needs to look good. It could look sloppy. That's kind of but if you have good designers, they're pretty efficient and make it not look too sloppy. So that matters.
Yeah. I've been really testing out internal linking a lot more than I used to. I spoke to Nate Matherson, who works at a cool kind of SEO tool called Positional. And one of the tools they have is this internal linking tool. And you had him on the pod, and he was talking about a study that Cyrus Shepard did on internal linking. And it was like, 7 links was like the kind of average. 7 internal links per post was like helpful for ranking. And then, but there were also some of these metrics on like having no match keyword like links to a site, to a page help, image links, like some of these things that like I would have never even thought of outside of just like, I always tried to kind of match it closely enough, right? But this got really hyper focused on that kind of thing. And
I saw that same study. That's a great study on Zippy. And one
yeah,
interesting thing from it, that's partially why I'm like, this is still inconclusive. But I think it still makes logical sense. I think his study showed after like 60 internal links, there's diminishing returns, which I think, unless you're like the biggest website of all time, that's kind of hard to do. It's just kind of content related linking. And that tends to not be exact match, site wide nav stuff, which is probably what his study covered. But that'll be interesting to kind of look at because his study did see diminishing returns. But I think it kind of you're at a good level around 50, which is probably like too much anchor text, that kind of thing.
yeah. Well, Ross, I know you're a busy man, so I'll let you get back to it, but I really appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on. You can catch Ross on LinkedIn. He's very active there. He's also active on Twitter. Maybe check him out on Threads. He's just dipping his toes in the water there. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Ross. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Vince. Great catching up.
Yeah. And again, if you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, let us know what you think in the comments. If you have questions for Ross about product-led PR, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer. Thanks again.